have to hit record again. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so basically this is a very interesting assignment. So you can pick any weather storm, you know, it can be from your own country, it can be any other part of the world. It should just be some quite iconic major weather event. And so that's the assignment. And I always, you know, it's always such an interest. I just love getting everybody's homework, because it's always so incredibly interesting how these big weather events play out in terms of the actual astrology, you know. So yeah, I hope you guys are gonna have lots of fun. Elka couldn't be here today because she's broke her tooth, and the only time she could get into the dentist was it's morning for her, so she had to get there this morning. So that's why it's just going to be the two of us, because everybody else is just watching on the recordings. Okay, so let me get, okay, I'm going to share screen. Okay, so I will do questions afterwards. Let's get going with the actual lesson. Here we go. Okay. And there's the PowerPoint slideshow. There we go. All right. So we are looking at Neptune today. And Neptune is considered to be a higher octave of Venus. I know that is used in modern psychological astrology as well, but certainly seems to hold true also for weather astrology. So Venus is a rainy planet, but then Neptune adds a bit of a freakishness to the rain. So you know, you'll get sudden downpours, and so that is when you've got Neptune and Venus together, you can get all kinds of weird rain events. But I think even Neptune on its own also can deliver some freakish rain events. Neptune is also associated with low barometric pressure and winds that come in from the equatorial south. So it's the warmer winds that come in, if that's in the northern hemisphere. For us here in the southern hemisphere, the warmer winds come from the north, because we face north to look at towards the equator. So because it's low barometric pressure, winds coming in, Neptune is associated with ascending air currents. And Neptune can also be associated with rainy wind or windy rain, squalls. So squalls are rain when you've got like wind driving the rain, and the squalls usually happen along coastal areas and along waterways. All right, so what does Neptune bring? Neptune increases humidity. In the cool seasons, because of the increased humidity, we've got fog, we've got low visibility. And I know if we think of Neptune in terms of natal, Neptune can often be a sense of confusion, you know, not being able to see things clearly. So it's similarly reflected in the weather patterns. Yeah, so visibility drops, humidity increases, so major fogs and smogs. So with the big cities, you know, you've got all the particulate matter from the factories and even home fires and things, and then that gives rise to smog. So that's like a dirty fog. And so that this foggy, smoggy kind of atmosphere, doesn't let much sunlight in. It reduces sunlight, and it's sticky. It's like, I lived in Durban for many years, and there, you just generally have a kind of hot, sticky atmosphere most of the time. So that's kind of a Neptunian feel to weather. Okay, so with Neptune, temperatures can rise, and it can be warm with excessive humidity. And then you get sudden changes, from absolute calm, suddenly you've got like a driving winds with rain, and even the destructive cyclones are also associated with Neptune. Freak weather. So if there's one little catchword for Neptune, it's freak. So it just adds a strangeness to weather events. I mean, even sometimes when you have those cyclones and typhoons and things, and they go over sea air, and they can suck up fish and then carry the fish along, and you get fish, it rains fish on the land and all those weird and wonderful weather events. That's also Neptunian in nature. In terms of the higher atmospheric layers, you get excessive static. So that's like electricity in the higher atmospheric layers. And you can even get vacuums in there, and that is dangerous for air travel. And cone clouds. So cone clouds start off narrow, and then they widen up into the sky. So that is also part of the Neptunian signature. Okay. So you can get increased wind speeds and lots of heavy dark clouds in the west. And that causes turbulence, and it sweeps down along narrow paths, often associated with the low-lying areas, with waterways. You get these kind of narrow, turbulent areas that come through. Right. The humidity, as we've mentioned before, it's hot. You get excessive humidity. So especially if it is in the hot season, and Neptune is very prominent in your weather charts, then you must be expecting this excessive humidity. Similarly, with storms, if the temperatures are high, Neptune can bring freaky storms, which are worse in the coastal areas. Low-lying is generally at the coast. But even if there's another part of the country where there is a low-lying indentation, so similarly the storms can sort of gravitate there. And then McCormack said when we're using Neptune, we must do more general predictions because it is one of those outer planets, but nonetheless, it very definitely has a lot to say about our weather. I mean, as I'm sure all of us here have noticed, the weather, certainly in my part of the world, the weather has been very strange. We've had, just definitely unseasonal weather, weird things happening. One day we've got like a 35 degrees Celsius, and then the next day it's 12, and we're in a drought. We had like a couple of weeks of absolute terrible drought, and then the last 2 days we've had absolute downpours. It's not typical weather at all. I can see Deborah Ann also agreeing there. And at Resty, in Philippines, how's it? Have you experienced the weather as being a little bit weird, a little bit strange?
Yeah, we had extreme downpours, no, in the past 3 weeks. No, so almost every, let's say 15 days, no, there's a storm here.
And
So that's quite that's not normal.
not normal. There you go. See, I reckon. And then if you look in McCormack, he said when you get these giant big events like the Saturn Neptune, which is going to be perfected in February, it can disturb the weather for a whole year across the planet. And that I think is what we're seeing. You know, everybody's, you know, in alarm about this and that. And, you know, everybody's panicking about global warming, depending on where you are and what's happening. But the general thing is that the weather is going to be a bit weird for this whole year across the planet. And then within that context, then we have to go specific and look at our solar, you know, look at our cardinal solar ingresses, especially look at our eclipses, you know, check the other lunar quarters for dramatic events. And if we do find the Saturn Neptune in the fourth or in the first, then we can know, okay, well, for this period, it's going to be a little bit more strange than normal. So, and I mean, the fact also to why I feel that it's been in play for a while now is because Saturn and Neptune are so close together. You know, they're literally within a few degrees of each other. So I reckon it's going to intensify up until when I think it's on the 20th of Feb when they're going to meet up. And actually, Deborah Ann did a very interesting astrocartography. She plotted the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and looked to see where it's going to be on the IC. So, you know, that's also an interesting exercise that we can do with the astrocartography. So you get that exact Saturn-Neptune conjunction and then plot it. You know, draw up the chart for that conjunction, which you can find using your solar fire. You can find the exact time and date for your location. You can use any location, but you just get that exact conjunction and then draw it. And those areas where we have that Saturn Neptune on the fourth house cusp, those areas should be severely affected by this big pattern in the month of February. So it's going to be very interesting to see what actually plays out. So that might be something interesting for you to also take a look at, Resty. And I mean, for anybody else who's listening in, I would advise, you know, that's the kind of thing we can do with this weather astrology. And we can do, yeah.
I tried something, although it's the earthquakes. We had several earthquakes recently, and it formed it's like a slanted straight line from three different major islands. So anyway, I applied the ingress chart, and I think, and from the ingress chart of September, there's also that straight line which somewhat is aligned with the location of the earthquakes. Although it's far, 700 miles. But the straight line is very, very clear.
You mean on that MCIC axis on your astrocartography?
Oh, not the MCIC, no, but there's the planetary line from north to south of my country, and then those are
Yes.
the exact, almost the exact areas of the recent earthquakes within the span of 1 month after
Okay.
the ingress.
Okay. Won't you put those charts and things onto a document and send it to me? I'd be most interested to have a Resty.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I will.
Because actually we're going to come to Neptune and Mars also quite associated with earthquakes as well. So earthquakes quite quite an interesting phenomena to track.
No.
And I think from the Vedic astrology perspective, I think they felt Mars was important, and in ancient astrology, they felt Mercury was important because Mercury was like literally like wind in the earth, you know. So like they saw earthquakes as kind of like a wind passing through earth and sort of buckling it up and all that kind of thing. So that's from the ancient traditional astrology. So it's interesting to track the earthquake phenomena. So well done for doing that. That's great. Okay, so red flags. So if we have dead calm, so these are red flags that are associated particularly with Neptune. So when we have absolute dead calm with a very, very heavy mist or a very, very heavy fog, then we have to be alert that something could be in the offing. And along with that absolute dead calm, in other words, so it's absolutely no wind, it's just this fog that hangs, and then the barometric pressure is dropping, so we're going towards low. That combination is very frequently followed by a freakish and excessive downpour in a very short space of time. So, I mean, what you were even saying, Resty, about for the last 15 days, where you've just every night had these huge downpours, that might also be somehow associated with that Saturn-Neptune story, because Saturn is stormy and Neptune is freaky. So this kind of freak storms is that it's going to be kind of what we're going to have to live through, I would say, until March or April next year. So, you know, we're not very far off February at the moment. So I think it's going to intensify and then slowly taper off. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. All right. Now, if we have Mercury or the Sun or Mars in a violent aspect, in other words, in a conjunction, square, opposition, semi-square, sesquiquadrate, which is at 135. If we have those in the hot weather, then we have to watch out for very severe sunburn. And for coastal storms, in the warmest seasons, it's exactly the same. When we've got, in a warm season, if we've got a violent aspect between Mercury, Sun, Mars, and Neptune, then we get those like sudden, incredibly powerful winds driving rain, and that is, and on the coastal areas, we can have a danger to yachts. I don't know about it being a danger to those great big container modern shipping. This is kind of from McCormack, who in those days they didn't have those very storm-worthy ships that we've got now. But this is kind of more small boats, and so we have to watch out for that. So basically, yeah, it's a hot planet. It's Sun and Mars, and then Mercury, the windy planet. That combination with the freaky Neptune either causes sunburn, which we can get the sunburn, you know, from the Sun and Mars. And then the squalls are kind of, I would say, probably more related to Mercury and Mars, because Mars is turbulence, Mercury brings winds. So, yeah, so we've got to watch for that. Again, which we actually looked at it already, but if there's a haze, and the haze is caused by having a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, along with a very peculiar calmness, that is also a warning signal, and related to Neptune, when we can get a sudden coastal storm, sudden like wind, rain, and all that kind of stuff coming down. Okay, let me find the next. All right, so when we have Neptune in the celestial equator or at maximum declination, you know, the north and south, near the north and south solar boundaries, or if it's stationary retrograde or stationary direct, or in the IC-MC axis, we can expect, so these are kind of the signatures, we can expect a lower barometric pressure, we can expect that very sticky, heavy humidity, and we can expect the peculiar calm with these wild, freaky storms. And right at the moment, we can go and have a look. Once we've gone through the slides, we'll go and have a look at the declination. But I think Neptune is cruising around that celestial equator just to make life more interesting. And at the same time, we do have Pluto that's actually gone out of bounds now. You know, it's been on the south. It's been cruising around at that southern solar boundary, but it's actually gone out of bounds at the moment. So that adds to the destructiveness and so on. So yeah, we are living in very interesting weather times. All right. So when we've got Neptune in the MC, we can expect static in the upper atmosphere. We can expect the low pressure systems, which bring the weather along. They move in the northern hemisphere. They're going to move towards the southerly areas. So they're kind of moving from pole towards equator in that direction. And it's opposite for southern hemisphere. It's going to be from our poles here in the south towards the northerly areas, which is closer to equator. And then in the low-lying areas, we can expect humidity. Inland, it will be colder and wetter because winds are going to blow down slopes towards the center of the atmospheric disturbance, because actually that Neptune is going to be associated with a low pressure area for this map that we're looking at with Neptune in the MC. So it's when Neptune's in the MC, it's not as dramatic as having Neptune in the RC. But still, it still has an effect. Okay, here's Neptune in the RC. So when Neptune in the RC, the low pressure systems move northwards in the northern hemisphere, and they move southwards in the southern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, you get winds from the warmer south, and in the southern hemisphere, it's going to be winds from the warmer north. And these air currents, they move up the slopes into the interior. And that means, so basically what it's doing, it can drag a whole lot of very heavy moisture-laden atmosphere up mountain slopes and then dump a whole ton of rain into inland areas and swell the streams, and then that causes massive flooding. And that flooding can go all the way back down to the coast and to other low-lying areas. And when Neptune is in the RC in winter, we can get, and even in spring, if it is a place where there is snow and so on, if it's a cold place, we can expect sudden snow thaws. Again, that freakishness. Instead of the snow kind of melting gently, it's going to be like a sudden thing, and again, the flood danger. Okay, this is just a bit of astronomy. The sidereal period, in other words, if you had to measure Neptune against a star like Regulus or Spica, it would take 165 years to return to that point. The Neptune synodic is when you have the Neptune-Sun conjunction, for instance, and so that will take 368 days from one Neptune-Sun conjunction to the next. Neptune at perigee, in other words, closest to Earth, September 2021, and 14 September 2021 and 17 September 2022. I haven't updated these. There probably are more, so I just never got around to checking that. So we can always just look that up on the internet. And then Neptune is going to be closest to the Sun in 2046. So that's also something to watch out for. When Neptune is at perigee and at perihelion, we also tend to get more of this freaky kind of extreme stuff. All right, so here are some examples from McCormack. So let's have a look. Right, let me just put my little marker pencil on. There we go. All right, so here is our Neptune here. It is sitting just outside the cusp of the fourth house. So that is good enough to be counted as being in the IC. I mean, by the traditional 5-degree rule, you could actually put Neptune in there because, by traditional astrology, you take 5 degrees outside the house and it's considered to be like the porch of the house, and so very much associated with the house. So that Neptune very much associated. So this is New York City, and okay, so there we have it. Let's see what unfolded. This is the Aries ingress in the Northern Hemisphere. That's March. So this is spring. Okay, this is spring in New York. The spring ingress. Okay, and notice at the same time, this blue line here is, oh no, that's your, okay, yeah. So we've got Uranus. We don't have Neptune in the celestial equator, but we have, here's Neptune over there, Neptune's there, but we've got Uranus sitting right in that celestial equator. And Uranus can bring record-breaking events as well. So these big outer planets, they definitely play a big role in these major weather patterns. Okay, so what actually happened? Right. So in the Ohio Valley and in the eastern states of America, they had a lot of rain, very, very much greater than normal. And Uranus going exactly onto that celestial equator upset normal weather conditions all over the world. Okay, and especially in Europe where Uranus was in the RC. So on the 24th of April 1927, the Mississippi River overflowed its banks. And I mean, the Mississippi is this giant river that flows through many states in America. So it just spread absolute disaster. And appeals for relief were sent out by the people living alongside the lower Mississippi because they just had all their homes washed away. So it was major. Okay, so this is just showing where the Mississippi is. There's New Orleans and the Mississippi. Here's the Mississippi Delta here. The Mississippi actually flows. I actually should have drawn it in here properly, but I didn't. But anyway, just to give you an idea, it's this kind of part of the world. Okay, right. So next example. Here we have got, again, this is 1936. And this is in Colorado. So this is the December solar ingress. So it's winter in America. And we have a Neptune-Saturn opposition. So we can learn something from this because, we've got the conjunction, which is the most potent. So this is, so it's Colorado. Okay, so we've got Neptune, Saturn sitting on that RCMC axis. All right. And on the 17th of January 1937, that opposition perfected. And then on the 22nd of January, we had Venus, which reconnected. So then obviously, they would slowly separate. But then we've got Venus connecting the two. Venus opposed Neptune, and like we said, Venus is also rainy. So now we've got the two octaves in opposition, and then Venus came along and it conjoined with Saturn the next day. So that's 22 and 23 Jan. Also, I'm actually just noticing here, we also have Mercury also linking the two on the 19th, because here we had Mercury sextiling Saturn and Mercury trining Neptune. So there was a lot of activation of that big giant event. Okay, so what actually happened? There were a lot of aeroplane disasters because of ice on the aeroplane wings. I don't know if it still applies to aeroplanes. Maybe nowadays they have heaters and stuff that can get the ice off and that. But certainly in the 1930s, this was enough to cause crashes or prevent takeoffs and all that kind of thing. So it was important for, and McCormack actually used to publish this in the newspapers. He used to put warnings out so that people could realize that they shouldn't, the big aircraft companies and that shouldn't actually, although not the aircraft companies, what's the name of the flight companies shouldn't actually fly their planes during this kind of weather. The winter season was much colder than normal and very miserable over the western parts of the United States. And in the middle and the eastern states, the temperatures were milder and lower than average rain and snow. So this very predominantly affected the western portions. All right, so the midway point between Neptune and Mars was located at Chicago. And in January of 1937, there were devastating floods that swept down the Ohio and the Mississippi valleys. And on the 29th of January, 330 people actually died. And 225 of them were in Kentucky. So in 10 different states, from Pennsylvania all the way through to Mississippi, 1 million, more than 1 million people were left homeless. So that is like a serious and major disaster. So we can see that is a Saturn-Neptune opposition in the solar ingress. So it is pretty hectic. So I've just, on this map, I actually have put the whole thing in. So there's the river flowing through all the various states. And yeah, this is where all this major flood in Kentucky, that is basically where they had massive disaster. All right, so now here we come to volcanoes and earthquakes. Okay, so this is what McCormack said. He said that volcanoes and seismic disturbances coincide with the outbreak of diseases. And so that's quite an interesting correlation. And it basically said it supports the hypothesis of planetary action being the cause of weather. I don't tend to think that it's so much a cause as a reflection, but anyway, it just depends on how one sees astrology. All right. So he felt that atmospheric electricity might be an agent of these seismic and volcanic phenomena. So he said that configurations from northern tropical Scorpio, particularly when Jupiter and other major planets are involved, lead to volcanic eruptions. So you see, and Scorpio is a Mars-led, I mean, it's ruled by Mars. So, and yeah, so that's what he came up with. And then Safariel, who that's just a pen name for a guy called, I think it was William Gorn-Old. He said Mars in conjunction or opposition to Neptune. He said that that was a powerful combination for seismic activity. So it'll be interesting, Aresti, check and see if you can see a Mars-Neptune aspect in that seismic investigation that you did for those islands close by you. Saturn on the meridian indicates the locality where the effects can be at a maximum. Weather changes and seismic phenomena are related to planetary action. Yeah, well, we know that because that's how weather astrology works, you know. So earthquakes follow eclipses. Yeah, so that's also a fact. Eclipses, somehow when Earth, Sun, and Moon all line up, that definitely seems to increase the seismic activity. And the other thing to remember, it doesn't only have to be exactly around the earthquake, I mean around the eclipse time. It can also be like I showed you when we were doing eclipses. You can look and see when the other planets go along and activate that degree of the eclipse. That can also be when seismic activity, earthquake activity occurs, when that eclipse degree is activated by Mars or Saturn or Pluto or Uranus or any of those major planets, even, I suppose, even Jupiter, but I would say more Saturn, Mars, the malefics. Then we can expect this kind of seismic waves of Earth. Okay, so basically that is the end of our theory on Neptune. And yeah, so when you're doing the storm, you want to try and find, if possible, like when did the storm start? Where did it start? When did it start? And then trace it. So I know for some of the storms, it's easy to find. Sometimes it can be a lot more difficult. So try and pick a storm where you actually can get quite close to finding out the time that it actually made landfall and started causing mayhem, because generally these major storms do cause mayhem. So, and then you want to find out like where it made landfall, and then you can also chart it. You can chart it like the route that it took across the country, and then when and where that storm finished. So kind of like look at the anatomy of the whole storm and see what you can find. So you want to do declination graph. You want to do the so you find out, okay, well, it happened in April. Then you're going to have to do the March solar ingress chart, and then do the lunar quarters, or the lunar quarter that's at the start of that storm. You could also look at the lunar quarter before that and see if you can see something building up. If there were wind charts around the storm date, bring those in. And particularly you want to be looking for, red flag weather patterns where these big planets are occupying major locations, in your declination chart, on your angles, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so when you actually do the exercise, find pictures, just put the credit for where you got your pictures from and so on. And some sites, they do allow you to use them for free, but I think it's always good just to like quote your source and so on. I actually, when I write these things up, I often find that the news agencies very often have excellent pictures and, in quite detail. And because everything's online, you can actually get quite a lot of history in terms of these big storms from the big news agencies. Yeah, so just write it up from your own point of view, and what you found interesting, and yeah, use your own voice, and then write it as though you are writing it for non-astrologers, so that if you like, you can put it out there on social media, and yeah, you could get it published. And I mean, if you wanted to say put together a narrated thing, make like a bit of a reel, or something like that, because nowadays, so it's we still do have written stuff for social media, but everything is now very much more angled towards multimedia and all that stuff, and reels and videos and all that kind of thing. So one could do that. You could, just together a PowerPoint, mark it up, and narrate it. So, there are many possibilities for doing this. And people do find this kind of astrology very interesting. I love doing this, but I just haven't quite had enough time to do this consistently. But I mean, if you wanted to be known as a weather astrologer, and you were prepared to put in this work, and when you like with those earthquakes near your place, Resty, or like these delusions, that you're having, figure out what's going on, put together a couple of a couple of charts and some photographs as well, put it together, and put together maybe a YouTube or even an article with pictures and so on. I think you'd find that you would get a lot of people who wanted to understand and were interested in that. So it is definitely, and at the moment, I mean, we are living in weird weather times, so there is a general interest in what's happening in the weather. So there is an opening for us to actually present this kind of information to the world at large. But you must try and explain everything in English and not just use the astrological term. So to just just don't just say put an opposition or a sesquiquadrate or something. You'd have to like explain that it's 135 degrees or something like that, or like a major planetary configuration or something like that, and then just go into detail, maybe at the bottom, something just right for people who don't know the technical stuff. Yeah, so that's it. And then yeah, you've got until December to do the article, so you can have fun, you can take your time, enjoy it, and that's it. So that's our theory sorted out. Let's go and have a look at our, let me stop share, I can find out the time. Okay, so let's go and have a look at our declination chart. I've got to share screen again. Okay. Right, so let's see what's happening declination-wise. All right. We'll take it for a year. Okay. So I'm going to just draw in the equator. The straight line. Go. Okay. Right. Let's do it. Put that over there. All right. Oh, my mouse is not behaving now. Right, let's give it another try. There we go. All right, so as we stand here, you can see just Neptune is at about just over 1 degree. Where is this thing? Oh, yes, there it is. Okay. So there's our Neptune. There's our celestial equators in yellow. So as it's getting to that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, it is approaching the celestial equator, but it's only like March, April that it actually is kind of on the celestial equator, like really, really, really in there. So, but still, this is jolly close. Eh? I mean, this is close enough to qualify for being, as far as I'm concerned, in that celestial equator. But it's almost the fact that it's after the conjunction, it's then gonna like sit in that on that celestial equator. That almost warns us that the freaky weather can continue for longer because it's right there. And then Saturn, this is Saturn here in the red. Let's have a look and see what Saturn's doing. Saturn's a little bit further out. Saturn's at about 3 at the moment. Just over 3, and then it goes down to 420 in December, and then it starts to curve up. And it is going to, it crosses, so the declination parallel is actually going to happen in the middle of March with the Saturn Neptune. That's happening over there. And then towards the end of March, we've got Saturn crossing over the celestial equator with Neptune very close by. So March could be quite an intense month in terms of bad weather. Yeah, sure. And then notice, you see here, we have like a bit of a bunch up. Look at all this activity going on here. We've got, what's this? This is Mercury. Look at Mercury. So Mercury is also approaching that celestial equator and engaging. And we've got an eclipse. Gosh, I tell you, that's towards the end of Feb. Hey? We've got Mercury heading up here. We've got an eclipse over there. We've got Mercury parallel Neptune, parallel Saturn, and the moon. Look at that. We've got 4 at the end of Feb, all kind of bunched up shortly after the eclipse. Yeah. And then this, yeah. And that conjunction, that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, is between two eclipses as well. And honestly, the time between eclipses is very intense. Certainly even in terms of human things. So, yeah. Then we have, so then Mercury comes along, it engages with, what's this other one here coming up here? Venus engages with the Sun and Mars. Phew. Yeah, I think we're in for quite wild weather. And it'll be interesting because this is on the equator, and like where you are, Resty, you are pretty close to the equator. Didn't you say you're about 10 degrees off the equator? Not so? Are you muted?
14 degrees north.
Okay, okay. So then possibly it might affect the islands below you. Be interesting to see if the islands south of the equator are more affected than you guys.
That would be Indonesia. They are always affected by they always have earthquakes.
Okay,
Indonesia.
yeah, okay, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they get, over this time, this February, March time, with all the activity being just more activity being south, if they're more affected. Yeah. And then I mean here, and then, not to forget that Pluto is cruising around here, pretty much out of bounds. Let's just see where it is now. It's 2345, and 2326 is the solar boundary. So, like, yeah, I think Pluto is pretty much, okay, here it goes a little bit in 2317. So from now until the end of December, we've got an out of bounds Pluto, a genuinely out of bounds Pluto. And look at all this stuff. And we've got Mars coming down here. Now, when we get Mars coming down here, it's below the southern solar boundary. This is when we get big fires in Cape Town. So it's going to, and this is the hottest time in South Africa because this is December. So, December, December, January, and February are the hottest seasons. Cape Town has got a Mediterranean climate. And so, and we've got this kind of vegetation called fynbos, which has got a lot of volatile oils, which is designed to burn. So very often when we have Mars out of bounds, we also have lots of fires. And that vegetation, it's designed to burn, and lots of the seeds actually germinate once the burnings happen. But the problem is that in Cape Town, which is the biggest city in the fynbos microbiome, you've got just so many houses everywhere. You've got houses like right into the fynbos all over the show, like all over the mountain and all that stuff. And so it gets very scary for people because, houses get destroyed, people have to, evacuate and all that. So this is a bit of a warning. It can also, just because it's in the southern hemisphere, doesn't mean that the north also can't get affected. But in the northern hemisphere, it's winter. So it's not the likelihood of these big fires is much reduced. So I would probably want to. And then we've also got the Mercury coming along here. We've got a Mercury Mars conjunction. That's not good for fire because the fiery Mars needs the earth, the wind to feed it.
Yeah.
So, we've got this Mercury kind of doing its retrograde thing over here, and engage. Look how many times it engages there. That's one parallel. Then Mercury hits Pluto. That could be also very strong winds. This is November. So there's like a build up here in November. Then Mercury hits Mars again, turns around and yeah, goes through what, Sun and Venus. That's not so major. We've got lunar quarters here, out of bounds Moon, and then Mercury hits Mars again here in December and January, and then Mars and Mercury return to normal, back to like normal declination events. But still, this is also a bunch up. So we've got a bunch up here in the southern hemisphere summers. So, I mean, and it can also influence, I mean, we just happen to know about the South African fires and things, but I think Australia and that they also suffer from bushfires because their trees, they've got gum trees, which also got loads of volatile oils, which also, burn dramatically and burn for hundreds of kilometers. In 2017 and 2018, we had massive fires where I live. It burned for kilometers. One burned along the coast and one fire burned up the mountains. But literally, it just burned for hundreds of kilometers. So, yeah, we are living in very interesting times. So, have you guys got any comments, any questions, anything else you want to look at? I mean, look at this. This is the northern summer. This also doesn't look like too much fun, hey? Look here. I mean, we've got an out of bounds Venus. Okay, and the moon, I mean, the moon is continuing to go out of bounds. It's very, very, very slowly coming back towards the boundary, where it's turning, but very slowly. That'll take another couple of years. So like the moon's still turning at 27:47, let's just say 27:45. The moon's still turning there. So that also disturbs things. Yeah, here, this Venus is out of bounds. Then we've got Mercury out of bounds. But this is also kind of very, very busy. And we've got, here they all start engaging Uranus. And then Mars arrives. He goes a little bit out of bounds there. I think he's at 23:45. He's just out of bounds. But that's another kind of bunch up. So we've got three sort of major bunch up. We've got this in the south for the southern hemisphere summer. Then we've got the equatorial stuff happening around the time of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Feb. And then here we've got a lot of activity going on in the northern hemisphere, and that's the northern summer. So it's going to be so interesting to see. But I mean, for here, I would definitely predict that we are going to get some bad fires. So what do you think, Deborah Ann?
Yeah, I was thinking of putting that Mars on the IC and seeing exactly where it may occur. But yes, I totally agree that when I say exactly where, I'm talking about where exactly on the peninsula might be most susceptible. But I think in general, I agree with you. It's absolutely probably a definite going to happen. It happens most seasons every year, but it depends on whether it's on Table Mountain or it's more on the southern side or it's in the Helderberg in Somerset West. The severity of the fires depends from year to year.
Very exact. Yeah, that would be an interesting exercise to try and figure out exactly which part it's going to affect the most. Yeah, that's a good thing. Good idea to do that. Brilliant. Yeah. So, any questions, queries, comments?
I just found it interesting that McCormack made a correlation between pestilence and disease, and he said the earthquakes. Is that correct?
I think it's earthquakes and major weather events.
And major, yeah.
Yeah. And that, you know, that
I've
makes sense. If there is like weird weather, then you kind of can imagine that it's a breeding ground for bugs, you know, for bad viruses or bad bacteria or whatever. And that's just
I
like
find
from
it
yeah.
Sorry, I have a lag with my internet, so I apologize. I find it interesting as well about the barometric drops in pressure and how it affects the lungs, and I think thereby making people sick as well, similar to if you're hiking up the mountains, like going to the top of Everest, or then you get that
Low
sickness
oxygen.
from the high altitudes. Yeah. So when the major storms happen and the major barometric drops in pressure, there's also an effect happening on people's lungs and susceptibility, I suppose, to illness and flus and things.
Yeah, because we're all connected, hey? This is the thing. We are so connected. I've been listening to a guy called Dr. Zach Bush. And I mean, he's actually really positive. He was an oncologist, and he ran an oncology clinic, you know, like a chemotherapy kind of clinic for years. And oh no, I lie. He ran a hospice. That's what he did. And he said that 10% of the people that went to hospice didn't die. So he researched the 10% of the people that didn't die from whether it was cancer or whether it was like some other serious disease. But I think he actually is an oncologist by sort of training. And then what he discovered was that those 10% of people completely changed their story. And then that led him to kind of figure out, like, what does it mean to be human? And so you know, if you're on Instagram, you can easily pick him up. He's Zach Bush, MD. And the one that I was just watching, I think it was yesterday, he was saying, you know, we are so connected, and our modern society disconnects us. And to the extent that we connect in with Mother Nature, that we connect with each other, you know, that we connect with the weather, even, you know, with the seasons, with the natural environment. To the extent that we do that, we become healthier and we become happier. And to the extent that we get caught in this modern trap where we kind of live lives by whatever routine we want. You know, we've got electricity, we can have our lights on and off at any time of the day or night. And when, you know, like when we get isolated from each other, or we get like too stuck in our own little worlds, and we actually lose health and we lose joy. And so he's a very fascinating guy. And the other thing that I picked up from him, okay, this isn't exactly weather astrology, but still he is a wonderful voice of positivity in a world which is pretty difficult at the moment. And so he was commenting about the toxins in our environment. You know, we've got so much Roundup or glyphosate that they're spraying on every crop imaginable. Even if it's not genetically modified crop, they'll still spray Roundup on sugar and wheat to dry the crop. And then it's soaked into it, and we end up eating this Roundup, which destroys our gut bacteria and all that stuff. But so he talks about that. But then the another one of the recent talks that I watched, I mean, they're small. He just does short clips. he was talking about the fact that Mother Earth is bigger than us. And so, we might think that we're gonna that like some of these things are just really terrible. I tend to get into a bit of a state about toxins in the environment and toxins in our food and all that stuff. I think it's rather disgusting. But he said that whatever we do as humans, whatever stupid things we do as humans, the earth as a living organism is bigger than we are, and she will find a way to balance it out. So yeah, I found him a very hopeful and very positive, and also down to earth. He's a doctor. He's not kind of a just somebody talking. He's educated, but he's also embraced natural living and healthy living. So yeah. Anyway, that's just that's just some of my what I'm finding helpful at the moment. So yeah, because I mean, like looking at this here, we can. I mean, this to me, when I look at this, because I love these charts because you can kind of like get an overview for the whole world for the whole year. This is from October this year till September next year. It just helps you kind of. But I mean, as far as I can see, what's going on here is this is the sky saying that we are going to be going through some like seriously intense times. That's what I get when I look at this thing. I don't know. What do you people? What is your response? Tell me your responses to looking at this declination from October now till September next year.
Oh, I agree with you. I definitely think the weather is going to be interesting, and it's not just going to be the weather. It will affect everything happening on the global stage. I don't know what Resty thinks.
You muted, Resty?
Sorry. Okay. I just checked the ingress for September in our place, and Mars is actually at the MC, or I think, yeah, MC. Okay, and then when I saw this, well, actually yesterday we had an earthquake. No, there was yeah, I think a powerful one. Uh 2 weeks ago there was around 7, no? 7 in magnitude, no?
That's
Okay, and
a
then
big one.
seeing this, yeah, that's a big one. And then actually some cities, although I'm far from that, some cities are experiencing thousands of aftershocks, no, for about a few weeks. Okay. So looking at this Mars declination, uh it might because no because the ingress chart is applicable for 4 months, no, right? No.
3 months.
So this Mars 3 months. No, the Mars declination uh would be within that range. No, Mars declin out of bounds. No, out of bounds. So this might indicate more earthquakes, no,
Yeah,
in our place.
yeah,
Okay.
because it goes out of bounds around here, around the early December, around late November, starting to go out of bounds. Yeah, early December, I'd say.
Yeah.
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 That's still because your next ingress is only like 20, 21, 22 December. So yeah, definitely this whole period,
Yeah.
yeah, December could be quite dramatic. And I think, this
Mm.
combination of Mercury, Mars also, these parallels coming up here. So we've got one in October and we've got one in November. What's this like? That's like mid-October. This is mid-November. So that can also because I said that, you know, I mentioned the ancients felt that Mercury was also involved. So we've got a Mercury Mars going on here, and that's also fire. Mercury Mars fire as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
do you guys have tsunamis? Does the
No, no,
earthquakes? No.
no.
Okay, well, that's a good thing.
Mhm.
That's a good thing.
What I find interesting, and just my observation in a very sort of cursory general sense, is that there's been so much more seismic activity and eruptions, volcanoes. And just historically, to make a comment that in the past, when there's been major volcanic eruptions and activity, it's always followed by, with the ash going up into the atmosphere, the winters are so much more severe, and storms and things, and crops failing, and, you know, because of reduced radiation from the sun, and the ash being up in the atmosphere have got quite some time following the volcanic eruptions. So
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's very true. That's a huge factor. Yeah. And I mean, what I've noticed with cacao, I mean, there's definitely been some major problem in the parts of the world where cocoa is grown, because the price has just gone through the roof. You know, it's like tripled in the last, say, 6 months. It's just gone so expensive here. Because I try to buy that, you know, the organic cacao. I don't just buy the ordinary old cocoa. Because I kind of use it as a bit of a health food. And I mix it with honey and a bit of like sesame butter, tahini, and that. And I make my own kind of chocolate stuff. But geez, it's become so expensive. And then somebody was telling me that coffee has also gone a lot more expensive. And I think cacao and coffee are both sort of subtropical and tropical plants. So that part of the world, you know, those areas in the world where those crops are grown, they've also been experiencing some weather problems. Resty?
Yeah, I was thinking in financial astrology, Neptune is inflationary.
Ah,
So actually, right now, gold is at its all-time high, and then you're saying that uh, cacao is also increasing in price. So maybe this will continue until that. When will Neptune be out of bounds? No. Okay, it's
Neptune is heading for the celestial equator. So at
okay.
the moment, it's sitting here at about 1.5, just over 1.
Okay.
And then it's going to hit the celestial equator in April. And then it's very
So
close.
maybe
I mean, even before.
Yeah, so maybe the inflationary forces no would continue until that time, no? And then let's see what
Yeah, well,
happens after
for
that.
the whole year ahead. Look at that. I mean, that looks like we've got to like hold on to our seatbelts, and we're in for a wild ride with prices, hey?
Yeah, yeah.
Because McCormack definitely said anything in the either celestial equator or on the solar boundaries, that definitely has a much more dramatic effect. So yeah, that's interesting, Resty, to put that together with these kind of freaky storms and all these interesting things. There is actually a very good it's a YouTube channel that my partner used to watch a lot. This guy, he is a commodities trader. So, you know, he actually trades in the raw cacao and citrus and all those kind of things. And because of that, he follows the global weather very intensely. And so for, you know, for us as weather astrologers, he is actually a very nice resource. Now I just have to remember what this guy's name was. I will look it up and I'll send it through to you, because I mean he literally he puts out, because you know there's this whole story about like the ice masses are melting and the sea levels are going to rise, and you know, and people are not going to be able to live in New York, and you know, not going to be able to live in the coastal areas. But this guy completely disproves it, because what he does is he tracks the total ice in the various, you know, in mainly he's northern hemisphere, so a lot of the time he's tracking the ice at the north, you know, in the Arctic. And you know, he reckons, yes, okay, so parts of the Arctic melt, but then other parts of the Arctic are increasing, and the depth of the ice is increasing. So you know what you get from him is no hype, because he's interested in actual facts, because those actual facts affect his ability to earn a living as a trader. You know, because as a trader you want to know like what's going up and blah blah blah. Because I think with those kind of actual commodity crops, you buy ahead. So you have to know in your mind, you know, what price you're going to buy into it. I think it's quite a complicated thing to actually be a commodities trader. Yeah, so that is a very worthwhile resource in terms of what's, and he's a, you know, he
Yeah,
does research, like he really researches, and he'll go into the history, because people will go, oh my goodness, it's 45 degrees and it's, you know, like it's never been 45 degrees at this place before. Then this guy will go back and look 100 years or 200 years, and actually it does get to those degrees. It's not common, but it does get there. So in like the sort of the popular newspapers or the popular media, um, news agencies, shall we say, there are hardly any more newspapers, but the news agencies, there's so much hype, and some of it is really not accurate. So it's good to have sources where you can actually get a balanced picture and opinion, you know. Yeah.
but it follows no, what Deborah mentioned. No? If there's something extreme in the weather, somehow there will be a repercussions no, regarding agriculture, produce, and the price eventually.
Definitely, definitely. And
Mm.
that's why this guy tracks it. You know, he's tracking what's happening. Because for
I- i-
instance, one of the, yeah,
Is it Tudor White, the one we're talking about? Tudor White.
no, no, that's not
Okay.
his name. I think he could be Mark somebody or other.
Okay.
I just can't think of his name, but I will look it up for you. And I mean, we can actually, let me see if I can find it while we floating around here. Let me, I need to get out of this, get out of that. Cancel, or close it down. No, I don't want to close it down. Why can't I see? No, I have to stop share. Okay, let me just stop share, because I can't see my bottom buttons on my computer. Okay, let me just find, um, uh, no, Okay, I'll have to, it's not coming up. So unfortunately,
Okay.
I'll have to fiddle around and find him. Just can't think. Because he doesn't actually go under his own name. He's, he goes under like a sort of a pseudonym. So I'll have to find him. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's about all from me. I don't know about you guys. Any questions, comments?
I just want to know if you have any recommendations for historical planetary phenomenon data, like 19th century.
So what would you be looking for, Deborah? And would you be looking for the major conjunctions and all that kind of thing?
No, like the perigees and apogees and
The stuff that's not in the astrology programs.
yeah.
Uh,
I,
I think Richard Nolly do those things. Richard Nolly.
Oh yes, Richard Nolly.
So,
He does.
yeah, yeah. He has a website. No,
Yes.
I just don't know. Yeah, richardnolly.com, I think.
Yes. Yes. He actually gave
Yeah,
a
he
talk for
uses
us.
the yeah he uses the declination a lot also.
Yes. Yes.
so it's as far back
And
as the 19th century and further back.
I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
think it's
I think what the
let's have we can
hundreds
have
of years his work covers hundreds of years. Okay, go.
has he got data on his website? That's interesting. Let's have a look. Richard Nolly. I actually bought his report. Yeah, I think is he? No, he's not Astro Pro. That's his Facebook. Is he Astro Pro? Maybe he might be Astro Pro. Let's have a look.
Yes, astropro.com. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There's his website. Share. Sorry, let me share. Okay, so his website is astropro.com. But navigating his website's not the easiest, hey?
Yeah. Very old style.
Very old style. You could write to him. He might help you. He's been in practice for 40 years. So, but I don't know. There is a place to actually get more information. But my goodness, because I can't find, to try and find his menu is a bit of a story. And it seems to have gotten more difficult with time. Let's just see. Report or chart.
Okay, I got it. You just search the keyword apogee. Richard Nolly and then apogee and then that web page will appear.
Okay, so what do we have to type in? Resty,
Well,
Richard Nolly.
from Google, his name
Yeah,
and then apogee, no, and then apogee.
apogee. Okay.
Yeah, there.
Okay. There we go. That's 2019. And then how do we go
Yeah.
backwards? We'd
Well,
have to,
well, let's see. Getting close. We're getting close.
yes. Yes, you see, because I mean, he hasn't got he hasn't got a navigation thing on his website. He used to.
Yeah.
And it seemed to have become more and more difficult to find his stuff. The moon, oh, here we go. Inconstant moon, moon at apogee perigee. There are also some university sites, Deborah Ann, that track apogee perigee. So you could also try that if you, but maybe, you know, if you had to just search the particular dates that you were looking at, you might find that also on, oh here, lunar, there's a lunar apogee perigee calculator. Here we go, Formilab.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can calculate it. Okay, but that's just lunar. But now if you want the other stuff, you're gonna have to, I'll send it to you on the, I can send it in chat and WhatsApp. Let me just send it to Deborah Ann here in the WhatsApp. Now I'm going to just find this. There we go. And then I'll put it in the Zoom chat as well. Where is Zoom chat? Crumbs. Oi, let's just stop sharing. Find the chat. It gets so complicated when you're sharing your screen. You can't see stuff that you need to see. So there we go. That's the website. If for looking up dates and things. I think there's also a Japanese. There's a Japanese. Let's just look here. Apogee and perigee data for 1900. Okay. That's just lunar. Inca lunar calculator. Mainly they want to give you only lunar. You might have to, you know what, Deborah, and you might have to search it out for like whatever planet you're looking for, you know. But that did I not give you guys that Japanese website when we were doing
No, you
the
did.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that could be something that could be helpful. And there could be other varsities who maybe the you know varsities that offer astronomy, they might keep those kind of records. So yeah, those are my best. And then like Resty says, you know, look up Richard Nolly and various apogees and perigees and things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, because actually Richard Nolly, he predicts economics and weather and a whole lot of things every year, but you have to pay. He charges, I think it's $80 for his annual report. Do you get his annual report, Resty?
No, I have. Well, I get Merriman's annual report. Raymond
Ah,
Merriman.
yes, yes. So do you actually practice financial astrology?
Uh, a bit. Yes, somehow. That's the first
Okay.
formal course I took on astrology
Okay.
under Kay
Excellent.
Shinker, in case you've encountered her. Kay Shinker.
Hey, Shinka.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I've heard of Christine Skinner. I haven't heard of
Okay.
Shinka. Hey, so
Okay.
how do we spell it? Kay and then Shinker.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Anyway, she passed away already. I took her course
Oh,
around the 2000, no, 2000, the year
okay, okay.
2000.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know that actually McCormack, he was also a financial astrologer. So he did financial
Yeah.
and weather.
Mm.
So yeah,
And
he was a
regarding there was a question earlier, no, regarding the weather and the prices. Even
yes,
Gan, no, the
WDD
famous trader. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. He also used uh, these things, no? Maybe he even knew what McCormack was working on. Yeah.
Exact. And McCormack might also have been aware of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, my partner actually had some of his books, Gan.
Mm.
And then there's a modern astrologer, Olga Morales, on
No,
Facebook.
yeah.
She's always writing about Gan. She's very, I think she's also a financial astrologer. And I think she's written a whole book on how she uses Gan's methodology and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's quite complex. Hey? It's not the easiest methodology to follow. Do you use Gan in
I
your work?
I think weather forecasting is more difficult than financial.
You think so?
Yeah,
That's so
because
interesting.
well, actually, with regards to let's say a stock, no, for example,
Yeah,
Tesla.
yeah, yeah,
There
yeah.
is actually a birth chart. No? There's the
Ah,
IPO.
yes,
It's the birth chart, so it's
yes.
easier. You have a chart to look
Ah,
at
so you can see
with the
when
weather.
that stock is being activated.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Translates. Yeah.
okay, okay. And so do you actually trade, Resty? Do you actually use your astrology and are you trading certain stocks and things?
For myself, yes. Yeah.
Oh, well done. Excellent.
And in case you're interested, no, let's say Bitcoin, you should have Bitcoin.
Oh, you reckon? Is it going to go up?
Yeah, yeah.
I have
And
a,
the chart,
uh-huh, the chart?
uh, the chart of Bitcoin is it has I think Mercury in Aquarius, so Pluto is now aligned now with that Mercury in the first
Mm-hmm.
degree. So that's when the pri- when it, that wa- that's when the price hit above 100,000 US dollars.
Wow.
So the chart is working.
Sure. That's amazing.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
just got a natural, I think I'm too old. I've got like a natural reluctance. Do you have
Yeah.
anything to do with
Yeah.
Bitcoin?
It's totally a new thing. No? It's totally a new thing.
Mm, mm, yeah. And then also, yeah, here in this country, we had two young Indian men and they set up this exchange and they got millions of rand, they got like loads of investors. And I mean, they were literally in their 20s and then they just disappeared with everybody's money.
Mhm.
Like people lost lots of money.
Yeah.
And I found that very scary as well, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
But with Bitcoin, the idea is actually to do away with the middleman, so you can actually do it yourself. So that's the best way to invest in Bitcoin. Do it
yeah, but how do
yourself,
you do
which
that?
is very
How do
easy.
you do that? How, if you want to
Eh,
buy Bitcoin for yourself, where do you buy it?
in you can for example, in my place, there's an app, no, for that. It works like a mobile app. Whatever, for example, mobile banking. You have mobile banking.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can just act, no, Bitcoin using a specific app, no, offered by, let's say, a vendor, no. So, but it's very easy. It's like clicking several buttons only.
Oh,
And
really? Goodness.
I'm following one basic concept, no, that the idea is in a span of 1 year, you will beat inflation. So if we
Aha.
just let's say buy Bitcoin, for example, minimal amount for 12 months, continuously, if you spread that out or cost average, you will beat inflation in 12 months. Whatever
Okay.
is the movement. No? So basically, because Bitcoin is designed to be anti-inflationary. So yeah. So it
That's
basically you
interesting.
win. Basically you
Wow.
win. Mhm.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Have you got Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Deborah? No.
Oh, you
No,
should. You should. And
Well,
in
good.
thanks,
case you can
Messi.
ask me, in case you have questions later, you can ask me.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well done.
Uh,
Yeah, I think it's
uh,
fantastic that A, that you're doing financial astrology, and B, that you're into Bitcoin as well. There's a South African astrologer called Gary, what's his name now? Oh, I'm having a terrible night with names. He was living in Bali, but he is a Bitcoin man. So he is an astrologer, but he's also a major
Gary
Bitcoin.
Price.
No, not
Gary
Price.
Price.
He recently moved back to South Africa. Uh, Crumbs. Yeah,
Mm,
I'll have to look him up as well. When I
yeah.
find him, I'll let you
Well,
know. You probably heard of.
there's also there's also a chart for Bitcoin, so it can be astrologically studied.
Ah, won't you
Mm.
send us the Bitcoin chart? If you send it to me via
Yeah,
email,
sure.
then I'll pass it on
Yeah.
because that will be
Although the
interesting.
time is unsure, but the date is very sure. But
Okay,
yeah, but you can work
okay,
around it. Mm.
okay. And what time do you use? Noon.
The time was also recorded, but the place is not. So it's I think 12:01, 12 midnight.
Oh, midnight. Okay.
So
And
the
what
problem is the
location?
place. That's
Oh,
the
oh
problem.
yeah.
Nobody knows the
Okay.
place.
Oh, right.
But I'm
Oh,
using the Leo ascendant. I'm using the Leo ascendant chart computed, I think,
Delhi.
for Europe.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, this modern world, hey? We're into all
Yeah.
new stuff, eh? Jeez.
Uh,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, peeps. Well,
Okay.
I think I've covered everything I need to cover. I don't know anybody else. Thank you for all that fascinating info about Bitcoin. And yeah, I think we've got another interesting year ahead in terms of the weather. My goodness. And yeah, so for Resty, for you, I mean, it must be, you've got an opportunity here to like check and see how the weather is mirroring the world economies, hey? Because it should, like you say, like Neptune's
Yeah, yeah,
inflationary, and so
yeah, yeah,
like it would be an interesting exercise to like figure out how they mirror each other when you're watching all your various
yeah.
traits, and have a quick check at what the weather's doing and the declination chart and all that stuff.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
very good. Sure.
Thanks very
Yeah.
much, Karen. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Okay.
Absolute pleasure. Go well, be well, and enjoy doing your articles because there's no more. We finished the season now. I mean, you can carry on. We're already in the new season. You can just do whatever weather astrology you feel like doing now. You don't have to hand any more weather astrology into me. It's just really that article, and then we're done. So
Do we
yeah.
have a
Hmm?
number of words minimum for that article?
No, not really. I think as long as you cover all the bases and put
Mm,
the charts in. So yeah, if you just
yeah.
put the charts in, describe your charts. No, it doesn't have to be any minimum number, and also some photographs. So for me, it's more important that it is reader friendly, so that you can put it out there if you want, and you've got, so in terms of, for me, I'd like to see those charts marked up and all the rest of it, and some photographs and some, yeah, and just a description of what happened and how the storm unfolded, and yeah, no minimum. But but not none. There definitely has to be some kinds of description and interesting info. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, people. Be
Thank
well.
you.
Go.
Good night, Bestie. Bye,
Bye,
Karen.
Deborah. Karen.
Bye, Rachel. Bye, Deborah. Oh, I'm gonna stop recording. Let
Bye.
me stop recording.